Have you ever wondered why the deepest lessons in life never arrive gently? Why they always seem to tear something apart inside you first? Carl Jung once wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." These words might sound harsh, almost like a warning, but if you sit with them long enough, you'll see why they hold a truth we spend most of our lives running from. Awakening does not come dressed as comfort. It comes as disruption. And this disruption usually feels like something breaking inside us. Maybe you've told yourself, "I'll grow when things finally calm down. I'll heal when life gets easier." But Jung's message is clear. Consciousness is not born in safety. It is born in friction, in loss, in the moments when the old version of you starts to collapse. Think about the times you've been truly forced awake. It wasn't when life was perfect. It was when you couldn't ignore the anxiety anymore, when the relationship fell apart, when the mask you've been wearing cracked under pressure. These moments hurt, but they shook you out of sleep. This is the first layer of Jung's warning. Pain is not punishment. Pain is the doorway. If you try to numb it or escape it, you stay asleep. And nothing is more dangerous than a life lived half awake. When Carl Jung spoke of consciousness requiring pain, he wasn't talking about suffering for its own sake. He was pointing to something deeper, the reality of the shadow. The shadow is the side of yourself you refuse to see, the traits and emotions you bury because they feel unacceptable. It's the anger you pretend doesn't exist, the jealousy you laugh off in public, the fears you deny even to yourself. We all carry these hidden pieces. And Jung warned that what we repress doesn't disappear. Instead, it gains power. He once said that the unconscious will direct your life, and you'll just call it fate. Think about that. How many times have you repeated the same argument, entered the same kind of toxic relationship, or pushed yourself into burnout again and again? At some point, it feels like destiny, like you're cursed to repeat it. But in reality, these are unconscious patterns playing out in the dark. The reason they hurt so much is because they're asking for your awareness. And awareness requires discomfort. To shine a light on the shadow means dragging what you most want to hide into plain view. It feels painful, even humiliating. But this is exactly what Jung meant. Consciousness is not a reward, it's a confrontation. And that confrontation will always sting before it heals. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Almost no one wants to face their shadow. Admitting you feel envy, rage, or fear feels like betrayal to the image you've built of yourself. You might think, "I'm not that kind of person. I'm stronger than that. I'm above those feelings." But repression doesn't erase them. It only drives them deeper. And the deeper they sink, the more pain they create in silence. Jung warned that bringing these parts into the light will feel like tearing at your own skin. It hurts, but it's the only path forward. This is where Jung's idea of individuation comes in. Individuation is not about becoming perfect, pure, or endlessly positive. It's about becoming whole. It means integrating the conscious self, the parts of you that you accept, with the unconscious self, the shadow you've been avoiding. Imagine stitching together two halves of yourself that have always been at war. That's individuation. But stitching means tearing first. To integrate the shadow, you must admit it exists. You must feel the anger you've denied, acknowledge the fear you've covered, and accept the shame you've been hiding. Each step of that process feels like pain, because it is a kind of death, the death of an old self-image. Yet only by dying to that image can you awaken to something more real, something whole. You might wonder, what does all of this actually look like in everyday life? It's one thing to talk about consciousness and the shadow, but it's another to feel it in your own routine. In truth, awakening often begins in the most ordinary moments. It looks like finally admitting you hate the job that drains you, even though everyone around you praises stability. It looks like recognizing that you scroll endlessly on your phone, not because you enjoy it, but because you're terrified of sitting in silence with your thoughts. It looks like noticing the attraction you feel to the same toxic partners, over and over, and asking yourself why chaos feels so familiar. At first, these realizations don't feel empowering. They feel devastating. You might think, how could I not have seen this? How much time have I wasted? That's the sting of consciousness, the recognition that you've been sleepwalking through parts of your life. But that sting is exactly what shakes you awake. Jung believed that suffering carries meaning. Pain is not random. It's the psyche's way of demanding your attention. Each moment of discomfort is a signal pointing toward a hidden truth. When you stop running from it, when you sit with the discomfort instead of numbing it, you begin the real work of transformation. And slowly, the pain becomes less of an enemy and more of a guide. Here's the paradox most people never face. The more you avoid pain, the more pain you create. Every attempt to escape discomfort, through distraction, denial, or repression, only strengthens the very thing you're running from. It's like holding a beach ball underwater. You might succeed for a while, but the moment you loosen your grip, it bursts upward with even more force. Jung saw this clearly in his patients. He believed that much of what we call neurosis, cycles of anxiety, depression, compulsive behavior, is really the refusal to confront legitimate suffering. In other words, the problem isn't that you're in pain. The deeper problem is that you keep dodging the pain that could actually set you free. By numbing, avoiding, or projecting it onto others, you trap yourself in endless repetition. Think about the patterns in your own life. Maybe you overwork, so you don't have to feel inadequate. Maybe you chase constant validation, because sitting in your own emptiness terrifies you. Maybe you lash out at others, because admitting your own insecurity feels unbearable. These are all strategies of avoidance. They shield you temporarily, but in the long run, they build more suffering than the pain you were hiding from in the first place. And this is why Jung's words strike like a warning. There is no coming to consciousness without pain, because the attempt to bypass it only multiplies the suffering. I know this because I've done it too. For years, I tried to outsmart my own suffering. I buried myself in work, in achievements, in anything that could distract me from the quiet ache inside. On the surface, it looked like progress. But underneath, I was running from the very wounds that needed my attention. And every time I avoided them, they found another way back into my life. Through anxiety, through broken relationships, through a restless feeling I couldn't explain. When I finally stopped running, it wasn't glamorous. It was raw. Facing the pain meant sitting with emotions I'd buried for years. It meant letting myself grieve losses I'd minimized, admitting fears I had laughed off, and acknowledging the anger I thought I had outgrown. None of it felt heroic. It felt messy, like walking barefoot over shattered glass. But here's the strange thing. Once I allowed myself to feel what I had avoided, the suffering loosened its grip. The wounds didn't vanish overnight, but they began to heal because I was finally tending to them instead of locking them away. Jung was right. There was no awakening without pain. But he was also right about the hidden gift inside it. The more I embraced the suffering consciously, the less it controlled me unconsciously. When Jung spoke of individuation, the process of becoming whole, he wasn't describing some blissful escape from pain. He was pointing to the way we integrate it. Every wound becomes a teacher. Every shadow a guide. Every fear an invitation to grow. The parts of ourselves we most want to deny, the anger, the envy, the loneliness, are often the very pieces that, once acknowledged, unlock our deepest strength. Transformation doesn't arrive with fireworks. It happens quietly in the moments when we choose to stop numbing ourselves and instead ask, what is this pain trying to show me? That question alone can turn suffering into insight. And with insight comes freedom. The freedom to no longer be ruled by what we repress. Think of it this way. Consciousness expands not in spite of our wounds, but because of them. Pain breaks down the rigid walls of the ego, making space for something larger to emerge. It teaches humility, empathy, resilience, the qualities that connect us more deeply to life and to others. This is why awakening cannot bypass suffering. To become who we are meant to be, we must walk through the fire, not around it. There is no coming to consciousness without pain. These words can sound harsh, even cruel, when you're in the middle of suffering. But they aren't meant to punish. They are meant to liberate. Jung wasn't glorifying pain. He was revealing its secret role. Pain shakes us awake. It cracks the illusion that we can live on autopilot, avoiding the deeper questions of who we really are. I felt this truth in my own life. Times when I tried to escape, through distraction, through overworking, through silence, the pain only grew heavier. But the moment I stopped running and turned toward it, I began to see myself more clearly. It wasn't easy, but it was real, and in that reality, there was healing. Your pain is not meaningless. It is a messenger. It's asking you to pause, to look inward, to notice the parts of yourself you've buried. If you can sit with it, even for a moment, you might discover that inside the hurt is the beginning of awakening. So take this as an invitation. Don't fear your suffering. Walk with it. Learn from it. Because within that journey lies the most important discovery you will ever make. The discovery of yourself. Before you click away, I want you to sit with this. Pain isn't the enemy. It's the beginning of your awakening. If this video spoke to something inside you, let it stay with you a little longer. Maybe even rewatch it when you need a reminder. These are the conversations we all need, but rarely have. Thanks for watching. And if you like more reflections on Jung, dark psychology, and the path of self-discovery, make sure to subscribe to my channel for more.